only way we can grow is actually in relation. I thought for a very long time, like, when I'm this, then I can pursue this type of relationship. And it's like, no, actually, the way that I learn how I communicate, what triggers me, how I show up in hard times for myself and for my support system, super important data.
That's so
for
real.
growing pains.
Hey everyone, I'm Melanie Eke.
And I'm Kolbi-Rae.
And you are watching your favorite show on NCRF TV, Life Lessons. We are here to help you do life. We are so excited because we have a very special topic today. We're talking about growing pains, life transitions, and their impact on your mental health. And we have some really special guests that we're going to have this conversation with. Kolbi-Rae, you want to go ahead and take us away?
Yes, today we have Emmani and Erin here. Emmani works with National College Resources Foundation. She helps develop socio-emotional curriculum for younger students. And Erin here is an adjunct professor and also works at a nonprofit, right? Yes.
Yeah. Director of Career Development.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is really exciting because we're talking about a topic that has to do with transitions in life and challenges and being forced to grow. But both of these young ladies, if you haven't noticed, also work with students. And so you can also identify what those transitions look like and what those challenges look like for students. So our goal is to really help the students out there to be able to cope and overcome these experiences. So let's get into it. So when adolescents experience pains in their knees and their joints and their legs, they're typically referred to as growing pains. But the interesting thing is that adults also experience this emotionally when we are forced to grow or put in challenging situations that make us grow. And so my question to you, to both of you, is what comes to mind when you hear the term growing pains? Feel free to go. Either of you can go first.
We're like, who wants to go first? I think adulting, I think we use that word a lot. And I think with working with students of different ages, this idea of growing up, certain obligations, expectations, whether they're societal, familial, comes to mind, and how a lot of times that can bring a lot of emotions up for folks. I know that when I was growing up, I was first gen. And so being first in my family to navigate certain workspaces, academic spaces, there was a lot of pressure that I put on myself. To feel like I had to get it right the first time. And so this idea of if I don't do things in the way that I feel like I need to make my family proud, that I would be disappointing, I would be letting them down, and it would kind of create like this spiral of different hard feelings and emotions. So when I think about growing pains, it just comes up when a lot of times young people are like, man, adulting is hard, trying to build, this certain character or expectations of how I want to navigate life. So that's what comes to mind. What do you think?
I think growing pain sounds like obstacles and like being flexible within those obstacles. I think a lot of times, like when you're younger, older people tell you, oh, this like a tale or like something that seems so far beyond like whatever age gap that might be. But then when you get to that age, you're like, oh, dang, like what they told me then makes sense now. So a lot of things related to like adulting, like once you're in those spaces, utilizing like the wisdom that like older people have given you to help you maybe like transition better. So like it doesn't always mean like it's going to be hard, but it can be challenging. So learning how to be like flexible within those times while you grow can be really important.
Do you guys feel like your growing pains were more like internal or like external? Because like you guys gave similar but different definitions, and like I feel like yours was way more like about external factors and yours was more internal. So like if you guys can think about that.
It's a great question. I mean, I think growing up, it was external. And that was just the family dynamic that I was in, right? Where it's like you get the grades, you get the opportunity. If something internal was happening, focus on school, focus on work. So I think growing up, a lot of how I wanted to grow up was around maybe external accomplishments, milestones, things of that nature. Now being older, I'm realizing it was internal. Growing up, learning how to love myself, how to self-soothe, how to make sure that I'm aligned with my purpose. All those different things is, I feel, just as important or even more important than focusing on those external factors. So definitely I'm glad that like you pointed that out, the difference.
I think maybe mine is a bit more internal in a similar way where it's like, not wanting to make mistakes or those things that your family kind of put onto you. A lot of my growing pains were internal because I still kind of I don't like being open or like vulnerable in a lot of times. And so with that, like going through those transitions and not really being open or I was terrified to make mistakes. And I used to feel like if I made a mistake, like I would set myself back and there would be no hope for me. And I would have like this long, like soliloquy in my head in my room, like I'll never make it, but,
Not a soliloquy.
But it's real. A journal, right?
Right,
You make
right.
songs about it.
Like I used to like write like these long, I don't know, this is The Catcher in the Rye, right? The main character of The Catcher in the Rye, like I felt like that character as far as like making mistakes and being super self-critical, and then not expressing how I would feel in order to like gain more insight on how to like transition through this really awkward time.
And so you talked about expressing how you feel, and that's what I really want to get to the root of, because a lot of these experiences that we have to go through force us to grow, right? We're not like, I'm setting out to create an opportunity for growth, right? And so that does come with some emotions. So can you speak on the emotional aspects or, emotions that you felt when you've been in these situations before?
Growing up in
growing pains. Yeah.
Okay. Because I feel like we're always growing.
Right.
We are a tree. We
Right.
are always
The season.
The lessons
it could have
here.
been growing up. It could be now. But like, you talked about being terrified. Like, and so, like we experience some really serious emotions, and I don't think that sometimes we really acknowledge those emotions.
Ooh. Yeah. I think that could be really tricky because even still, like I have a really hard time like identifying my emotions and like I feel maybe a little detached from them and like trying to feel okay, well, like I feel this emotion in my body, but I'm gonna overlook it and just kind of keep going because I have to get this thing done, and I then maybe become like robotic in like these growing pains or these challenges, where then you kind of become like going through the motions, right? And a part of going through the motions is like I'm not gonna allow these things to like really affect me because I want to make it through, but I think
they are affecting you.
Yeah, they are, and it's like then it manifests in like lack of sleep or really bad headaches, in different ways where it's like you need to like identify the root of it and then figure out everything else.
It's very interesting that you say that because like I relate, but also like it also can other people see that too. Like they can look at the way that you deal with your emotions, and even if you feel like you're detached from them, people can be like, oh, like she has a really good handle on her emotions, and like like she is self-soothing and
strong,
right? The strong woman trope,
right? And that is very toxic. Like when people tell me that, I'm like, oh, you're so strong. I'm like, don't tell me that because I want to be soft, and I'm like learning how to like navigate through softness and not being strong all the time. That's a whole other topic.
But I feel you. Yeah.
I think it's also like how we reframe things. I appreciate everything you've been saying because it makes us think about things in a different way. I think society is very merit-based, or at least Western society is very merit-based, and from the outside, you could assume someone is okay. I think for the longest, that also was something like you're strong or you have it all together. And especially in my family dynamics, it's like, oh, because she looks like externally everything's okay, they never checked in with me internally. So I didn't really have a safe space, a lot to express how I was feeling growing up, because externally it looked like everything was okay. So especially with young people, check on everyone.
Yeah.
Right. The ones that look like they have it together and are quote unquote strong, to folks that are maybe more comfortable expressing their emotions, we might want to check in more with those folks.
I mean,
than
speaking,
folks.
speaking of young people, you both work with young people. So
Right.
so like, can you just share some of your experiences of what you've seen them go through when they're experiencing growing pains? Have you ever identified that in students?
Yeah.
Or even just anyone younger?
Yeah. I think creating space to be able to do check-ins that are not always about like the task at hand. I think with students, oftentimes it's like, how's school going? With us adults, how's work going?
Right.
So we start off those conversations around external things. So we get used to that script around everything's fine, school is fine. So how to build rapport with students to the way that they can talk about other aspects of their lives. So that way we can create that moment where emotions could potentially come out to say, things are really hard. I think I really love what you were saying too. It's like we model and mirror things. I think with my my early career, I felt like I had to be the strong counselor for students. And I realized, no, vulnerability with the students is a powerful exercise to actually say, like, I'm having a hard day.
Right.
Like,
with adults too,
yes.
because I know, like, I am not very good at faking the funk, and I realize that, and I always like, so if people ask me how I am, like, I'm gonna give them
The real.
I'm gonna be like, you know what, it's been a little rough. But I feel like the people that I see the most, like my friends that I see all the time, and like people that I am frequently with, like, tend to answer in a very similar way now, because I like make sure I like am candid.
Yeah.
And I think as a society, like, I think we need to be more candid with the way that, and it doesn't mean that you have to overshare. It could just mean that you are telling somebody what headspace you're in, so they know how to proceed to you.
Right.
And what you're doing is you're building trust, and establishing connection and allowing them the space to be vulnerable.
Yes.
Right. And I think one thing that I've learned and I've taken, like, something that I felt like I didn't really receive much as like a child is like just genuinely being listened to.
Yeah.
I think children are overlooked and their problems can be overlooked. And it's like, well, just because you're not paying bills or whatever,
Right, I was gonna say, you ain't got no bills.
Right.
You don't want these adult problems.
Right.
I'm
Like,
not gonna
I think
listen to
adults
it.
can overlook children's emotional needs.
Yes.
And so one thing that I always try to do is like just genuinely like listening. And it isn't always like what they tell you, but like listening in their actions and what's going on in the classroom or like at recess or during lunch, whatever it might be, is like listening is paying attention not only to the words, but like to the physical, to the body. And so paying attention to those things, especially in students and younger people, like it helps not only them, but it helps you. Like, I've learned a lot about vulnerability just by working with like children. So I think that is one thing that definitely needs to be like considered, is like, don't overlook children. They have a lot to say, and they also go through a lot of things too.
And they know so much.
Yeah.
We don't give the credit to them. They know.
Yeah.
We try to protect them, and it's like, no, we can bring the conversation age appropriate. They can handle it.
Well, they're
very
even
intuitive.
smarter than
Yes.
they were
Yeah.
at my age, when I was that age, because of technology and social media and whatnot. They know a lot more than I knew at that age.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to ask you, do you think that it's also a generational thing, that it's now that we talk about feelings more, that we talk about mental health more? Do you think that those spaces have been created a little more in society?
I think so, especially because like people who are a bit older than me, they're always like, these generations, like they've got it easy, or whatever. But like, I think that is one of the things, like, as time changes through history, it's like we need to look at like what is before us. Well, that didn't work, so we need to change those things. I do think that there are more spaces, there are more resources for things like mental health, and tapping into the emotional needs of people, more than just like the physical needs, like these like primitive like ways of living through society, is like, I have a house and my kids are healthy, but like, what about the emotional needs that need to be met as well? So I think there has been growth, there has been change, evolution.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
I think there's for folks that want like the research behind it, like there's a lot of studies that show that like EQ, emotional intelligence, is actually very powerful for like not only well-being, health, but like productivity, success. They're like, which leaders out here have high EQ? Why is that? So I think too, in society, I don't think there was that much value placement on having high emotional intelligence and creating space for emotions. And I think once they started to show that not only does it help us like heal and make sure we're healthier and living longer, that it's just also good in other facets of life. I don't know if that plays into it or not, but I definitely think you're making a point around generational patterns and what didn't work in previous generations. If we don't fix it, it will definitely pour into the next generation.
It like affects your day to day. Like it's like if you're being real with yourself and you're like, I am not having the best time, and like you can figure out how to communicate that to like your boss, and you can, and or just to yourself, even like you can adjust your performance, you can give yourself grace, you don't have to just like push down and push through, which is why I think the emotional like intelligence is really important. And I think that it's really great that you brought that point up, because it's like it is a lot better now, I feel, and it's only going to continue to get better. And I think that, but do you guys think that there's like a flip side of people being more open with their emotions? And like, do you think that just with, even with like children, and like it could go into like people being like gentle parents or like stuff like that, like just, do you think that there is a flip side to being so open with your emotions and like so in tune with them?
I think it depends on the situation. And like gentle parenting, right? Like that can vary. I think that there does need to be like discipline or whatever, right? But discipline doesn't always mean like you're going to be punished and I'm going to beat you when we get home with the belt. You know, like those things are old ways. And I think like as we learn, there are things that need to be saved and things that need to be thrown away.
It's a spectrum.
It's a spectrum.
That's what I was picking up from you. It's like it's a spectrum. For me, like if we're pendulum swingers, right? Yes. Because when we're talking about vulnerability, and you mentioned like oversharing, right? There, you can be vulnerable, but in which ways do we put boundaries in place around who we share with, how, what we share, could actually be very protective of you and building a healthy skill set for you to determine, do I tell this person my whole life story and it could be used against me, you know? So
healthy skill set is a great
assessing.
Assessing.
So a minute ago, when you were talking about emotional intelligence and being aware of your emotions, you kind of got into what we wanted to talk about next, which is how do you build resilience throughout these situations and overcome them, and how do you actually do the growing part of growing pains, right? So tools that we can use, and it seems like we already touched on one tool. You have to be aware first, right?
Yeah, definitely. Awareness, humility, looking at yourself and like facing that shadow, you know, your ego. It can be very humbling. And I think a lot of times through like your growth, you have to be able and willing to like swallow that hard pill, whether it's through the mirror of your friends or close people that tell you like, hey man, like you need to switch it up, you know, or whether it's with yourself in a room by yourself. There are so many avenues on how can I humble myself. I think humility is a really important part of those obstacles and that growing resilience.
To add on to that, growth and fixed mindset. So like a growth mindset sees maybe a setback as a growth opportunity or an opportunity to learn something about yourself, the situation, or others. A fixed mindset really starts to put like labels on yourself. So like an example for me growing up, math. Oof, don't put me nowhere near math. And I, as a young student, I would say like, I am horrible with math. I am no good at math. And it was very much about my ability, labeling myself, versus a growth mindset would say, if I put more effort into learning math, I might do better. Or when I ask for help, like math becomes easier. So it allows for me to be able to view the situation a little bit differently. So that way I'm more willing to engage math versus say anything with math, I'm not going to go near it. Right. And I think growing up, if you're more willing to like lean into something that's hard, but you look at it as a way of challenging yourself in a good way, you might be more open to possibilities. And I see a lot of young people, because I see myself in them, saying no to things because they can't do it, or it's hard for them, or they've been told that they can't do it. And I'm like, oh, you're missing out on a piece of life almost, you know?
And I think kind of piggyback off of what you said earlier of like things being merit-based, you know, I think that can like really stress people out. It's like, well, and then even kind of like, you know, if you want to try something new, a hobby or an interest, a lot of times I have students that tell me like, I don't know, miss, like, I'm not going to try because I'm not good. But like you have to keep practicing. You have to keep trying.
Right.
I'm so glad you mentioned that as well, because think about sports, right? We see these basketball players, for example. Like I remember hearing this amazing story about Steph Curry. Like we just think these people are just talented. They were born that way. Well, he wasn't born with a basketball in his hand, right? You know. Right. Now there are maybe some qualities or dispositions that may lend themselves to being good at something, right? But when you hear Steph Curry's story, and I recommend that you all kind of go back and hear it, there's a specific training camp that he was at. And one a coach or someone remembered distinctly seeing this guy was in there every day, 30 minutes before everyone else, shooting. When practice ended, he still didn't leave. He stayed and shot until he was able to get all shots, I think, like for 5 minutes in a row.
Right.
That's how people get good.
Yeah.
Right. Not to say that you're going to be Steph Curry if you picked up a basketball, but you're going to be a better basketball player if you practice than if you don't.
Right. And like one of like kind of going back onto like what I said, like when you're younger, you don't really listen to the older people in your life, right? One of the things that like my mom would always tell me is like, you got to dig deep. Gotta dig deep. And I'm like, girl, what does that even mean?
You're like, where am I digging to?
Right. Where am I going? I'm headed towards a bright, successful future. And so like and you know, like I get that so much more now. It's like you do have to dig deep. And like one other thing is like along with that is like you gotta let go of some things sometimes. And a part of digging deep is like, I know that I have an end goal. How am I gonna get there? Very much by any means necessary, right? So if I know that I have a goal, regardless if I fail or if I succeed, how long it takes me, I'm going to do it because I want to achieve this thing. Regardless of the obstacle, regardless of the challenges, you want that because you want to work hard for it. So I definitely think that digging deep is important, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Dig deep. You heard it first.
To add on it to it, I think sometimes with resilience, we think that the Curry story that you're mentioning is we always want that end success story and that, you know, if we just add in extra effort, we can get there. But sometimes resiliency is like you mess up a couple times, but you just keep going, you know, and you say, you know what, although I said I wasn't going to do this again, I'm going to keep, you know, trying. I'm going to try it again.
Right.
So it can look different ways and it can be hard and you have to be soft and you have to be open. You can allow yourself to break. That also could be resiliency too. And I think young people need to hear that too, to say you can make mistakes along the way of being resilient.
That's where the growth is.
Right.
And did you guys have like a point in your life where you kind of found that resilience? Because it's like, you know, you have low times, high times, and like when you get older you kind of are like, oh, a bunch of this is happening because it can only get better. Like there's brighter days ahead. Like is there a time in your life that you guys were like, this is where that's where I learned resilience, like that is where my resilience really came through?
I mean,
I know, right? Day by day. Right.
Right.
Day by day.
Shout out Destin Conrad. Sorry. He has a song called like,
Be Life In.
Everybody look it up. It's very relatable. Anyways.
I just think of school settings because we're talking about students, but I really do feel that I had a learning disability as a child. So I went to like a speech therapist as a younger person because I didn't talk. My sister would talk for me. And so my parents were like, oh, what's happening? And then I went to the speech therapist and I caught right up. And then now you just can't shut me up. And then later on, I was realizing that I was like, how I process things is just a different way. I think I use a different part of my brain. So getting older and realizing that I have ADHD, legit, being resilient in the sense of I could let that label me and I could let that say, oh, well, because this is how my brain works, like I'm not going to pursue certain opportunities because I'm quote unquote not good enough or I'm different. And I see this in my family with my younger cousins, my siblings. They give up and they don't see enough role models from different walks of life. And I share that right now for folks that might relate to that part of my story to say, it's okay. Like, let that be your superpower. Like, I now own it. I'm not shameful about it. Like, I actually say that makes me more actually focus in on details and I can see things that other people can't see in certain scenarios and how I solve problems. So it's definitely a battle. Like, I have to develop strategies along the way, but I'm glad that I'm at this point where I'm just like, it's my superpower versus like 10-year-old Erin would have been like, oh my goodness, like, why are you telling our business?
No, for real.
Yeah.
Right. Like, similar, I think resilience though can also include like taking breaks because you don't want to be burned out. You need to be, in order to be resilient and go the long mile, taking breaks is okay. And I learned that in a hard way myself. Like I would burn myself out and be up early to the middle of the night, and I just was feeling so burned out that I felt like I had to meet my goal at a certain time. But through time I realized okay, there's no timeline on my success or how I meet this goal. What matters most is, am I being determined to finish it? So definitely just giving yourself those breaks and being merciful to yourself can really take you there instead of just going in really hard and hoping for the best.
And self-care.
Yeah, self-care. Now I'm chilling. You cannot convince me to burn myself out.
Girl.
Or
I don't think I have energy to burn myself out
right.
anymore.
I
be
stressing myself out for nothing.
That is something I'm still learning.
One
I don't
thing
know,
about
it's a journey.
me,
It's a journey.
The tender age of 23. You'll get there.
No. Look, y'all, one thing about me, I'm going to take a nap. Okay?
The ministry of nap.
I'm gonna take a nap, okay? Yes. And that's okay. Do what works best for you. Yeah. And kind of to close all that, I feel like at some point, it will be brought up, but for my own resilience, just learning and navigating through adulthood, not necessarily on my own, but without my support system in a way where it's you need a support system. You need to find a support system, and it may not always be in a traditional way. Finding those people that give you that support to help you get those breaks. You can't take a break on your own off to the curb. You want to be in a nice closed home with people that might love you or help you and support you in those ways. So just take those breaks, and it's okay to take that nap.
Take that nap.
Now you said
good.
Yeah, we can pull a lot out of that.
Take that nap.
So you said the magic word, support system, which is our final topic. So way to segue. So let's talk about the impact of your support system on navigating these life transitions. I know you spoke a little bit about it, but maybe if you could even think about just times in your life where you're like, man, if I didn't have.
Right. Or shout out your support system.
Yeah. Sheesh. Okay. My support system has kept me together, maybe with a little super glue, a little duct tape. But through obstacles, through transitions, it's sometimes your support system changes. It's not always going to be the same people.
Season, reason.
Some people may not understand what you're going through, and you might not feel that support, or you might not feel open enough to share with the details of what you're going through at that time. And then I truly believe in chosen family and picking people in your life as you grow through time and through your life that you keep them. So for me, it's like I feel so blessed and wealthy and rich because my friends are like gold to me. They are irreplaceable. They are family. So it's like, this is my family that I have chosen in this lifetime. Because, some bits and pieces of the family tree, it's a little shaky, but that's okay. And I always tell students that too, is like, whether it's on campus, a teacher, a counselor, a neighbor, find your community. It doesn't always have to be your sister, your grandma, your aunt. Find people who support you and see you without your mask, see you for who you truly are. And that is very rich and very important.
I love that.
Check.
Pin drop.
Right.
Pin drop. Mic drop.
Yeah. The only thing I would also add is like, the only way we can grow is actually in relation. I thought for a very long time, like, when I'm this, then I can pursue this type of relationship. And it's like, no, actually, the way that I learn how I communicate, what triggers me, how I show up in hard times for myself and for my support system, super important data for growing pains.
Yeah.
And I am grateful for the chosen family because I think them showing me that grace along the process of like growing, and mentors who sat down and actually like taught me the insider scoop of how to like navigate things was super helpful. And I think with the support system is that paying it forward and making sure that we're passing along that knowledge to folks that are asking and having those transparent conversations. Because I think sometimes I used to protect young folks, whether that's my cousins, the students, and it's like, no, how do we have healthy conversations about the questions that you might have?
Right.
And like, put me on the hot seat, like really ask me
right.
what you need to know. So that way I get the full picture. And I think my mentors along the way in college, my friends, we went there. We went kind of beneath the surface to have like real conversations. I think it's important.
Yeah. And it can be tough, you know, like hard conversations are tough. Opening up and vulnerability is tough. But you got to practice it with somebody and some people. Not everybody is worth practicing it with.
Or they're not ready to do that work with you.
But that person that asks you, how are you? But they go, no, really, how
For
are
real.
you?
Right.
That person is the one that you probably can open up to. Realistically.
Right.
Have you ever had anybody ask you like, oh, are you happy? Or like, are you content? And you like just sit there bug-eyed and you're like,
Right.
Actually,
I'd be like,
let me tell you.
And you're like gagged. You're like,
Yeah. Oh,
and
my
they
God.
know you. And like, also you need the people who's going to challenge you.
Yes.
Right? There was people who are like, Erin, you know you're not supposed to be doing that.
Yeah.
Like,
keeping you accountable.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
Accountability partners.
accountability. And then me being open enough to take that feedback and not take it personal.
And that's that humility, to be humble.
That's true.
You need
Right.
to,
Bring
like
that
that
back.
shadow work. Yeah.
Yeah.
This once again, the feedback goes back to growth mindset.
Yep.
Those are the areas where you can grow. But
Right.
Emmani, you said something a minute ago that I found interesting, because you were talking about how, some people may not know what you're going through, and so you can't really discuss everything with everyone. And it made me think about, I think there's different ways that you can get support from people. One way is through talking through things with them, but I think some people, just being in their presence, can make you feel supported.
Yeah.
We don't really have to talk about anything.
Everything.
And sometimes I do need to get away from my thoughts. And sometimes you could just help me to just
Yeah. One thing I think I like for me, like, quality time is very important.
quality time.
Love
And I love a
languages.
good quality time, like just sitting in silence or being with someone or people that you really love. But another thing is, like, I love laughing. Laughter is so important, and it's healing. It's healing. It's truly like medicine. People who laugh a lot live long. So don't forget it. Right.
I love to laugh. I love to laugh.
Yeah.
Don't be a dud, okay?
No.
Don't sit there with stick up and you know what and be like, that's not funny.
Right.
Like, it's hilarious.
I'm real bad too, because speaking of like obstacles and challenges and resilience, humor is like, it'll be a really tricky, tough situation. I'll make a joke. And it's probably not good all the time,
People like
but
too soon.
right. But it's like,
I'm like, is it though?
Right. It helps me make it through. You know, a good joke will make me get through it.
Yes.
So.
And I think sometimes people are like, oh, like, not everything's a joke. And I'm like, bro, life is literally so crazy.
Absurd.
It's absurd. You should
Right.
laugh. Like,
Right.
like, this is, and I know sometimes it's like bad timing, but the person that's always making the joke, I see them. I'm like, you know what?
Right.
Because this is just like absurd. It's bonkers.
Right.
Like, life is so crazy.
Right.
It's not even, I might as well laugh about it.
Yeah.
Like,
Find that person in the room. You look at them. They look at you like.
You're like,
right.
Right.
we both see it.
Right.
We see it.
Yes.
I think the other part too is like sometimes I'm stuck between. I love y'all's thoughts on it. It's like, do you ask? Sometimes I'll go, what role? Like, how do you want you? How do I support you right now? Do you
Yes,
want
that's
me
a good
to bring the chips? Do you
Girl,
want me
yes.
to give you advice?
Right.
Do you want me to just listen? And I've learned that that's actually been really helpful because I'm a very solutions oriented person. I get it from my mama. And so,
Yeah.
but that's can
Sometimes
lead
people-
into
yeah,
toxic
Yes.
positivity though, where it's like, I just need to be there for you.
Yeah.
Not
I
give
just need you to hear me. I don't really need you to give me. So I just
Right.
want to feel heard.
Right.
Yes.
Sometimes that makes the situation worse.
Worse.
Like,
Right.
people
Yeah.
don't always want to hear advice or, you know,
Right.
Right.
just.
And it doesn't give them agency. Like, no, you have agency over your life. Don't, you know, I don't need to get in the mix.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes I'm like, is it helpful to ask, like, how do you want me to help you during this time? But on the other hand, when you do know your people, you can pick up on the cues.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because I know when this one's hungry and how
Oh my
she
gosh.
acts when she's
Oh my God.
hungry,
Everybody knows I get hangry.
she does.
I feel you. Oh
and
my
then
God.
I'm like, does anyone have a granola bar?
Oh
'Cause
man, a
this
little
is not gonna be
something, a little
good.
snack,
No,
a quick
literally.
snack.
Have you seen me get hangry too? Oh
Yeah.
gosh.
It's a thing.
No,
It's
but
a
it's
thing.
real.
And I
It's
just touch your
real.
shoulder and I'm like,
I get
It's
angry.
real though.
It's
So,
okay.
so what do
Oh
y'all
my
do? Do you like
gosh.
ask the friend, or you kind of pick up the cues where you go, okay, she needs me to come over with the chips, or you do a little bit of both?
I feel like I feel like we're really good at that. I'll just be like, I know when she's hangry as well. 'Cause-
I'm so sorry for my attitude.
Yeah, no,
No, you're not. It's
My
not
gosh.
attitude. It's like there's a specific being able to tell people silence is like
That is crazy because I will be like,
Oh my god.
silence. Are you silent or were you silenced? Like being hungry has silenced me.
Oh my gosh.
It's like I think you just like know your people. I know
Right.
like especially I have like friends and I know like myself. Like if I'm like upset, I'm quiet.
Right.
It just it depends on like I have a friend that like she expresses everything. And I know she doesn't want my advice. I know she just wants to like yell and scream. So you just like sit there and I just go, yeah, girl.
Yeah.
And you just go,
Yeah.
I can't believe it. And you just,
Right.
you know, give the little automated responses.
Right.
Because you know that they just need to get it out. Some people are like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's about knowing your people.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think if you don't, then it's really great to be like, honestly, what do you need from me right now? Like, I want to be here for you.
Right.
In what way would you like me to show up? And I think asking people how you, especially if it's a new friendship but you value it,
Right.
or a new relationship and you value it, it does not hurt. It is honestly even better if you ask, like, how would you like me to show up for you
Right.
in
Right.
this situation or in this moment?
Can I flip it? What about our ability to ask for help?
Oh,
Are we the person that
ouch.
can
No.
tell our people, I need you to come
Nope.
over with just to listen,
No.
just sit with me?
I
'Cause
wish.
I found that I'm on that, like if I was thinking about my younger years to now, I was the person that was like, I'm good. No, I don't want you to come over here. Like, don't waste your gas.
Aw,
Don't
yeah.
I'll be
I'll be
fine.
Wow. Okay. Well, how do you do that? Because I have a hard time asking for help.
Yeah. I'm still the I'm good person.
Yeah.
Same.
I'll be
The only-
struggling.
The only person that I think I'm not good with is probably because like you said, like you learn through your relationships with people. Like the only person that I can't fake the funk with is my mom always, but I try not to worry her because she's my mother and she's done enough for me. So
Right.
like whatever. But my
Your
boyfriend
mother has never done enough for you. She's always gonna be your mother.
Yes, that is true. But my boyfriend, I feel like I try to be like, I just need a hug.
Right.
I'll like take a deep breath and I'll be like, can you just bring me chips? Like,
Yeah.
I try, but when it comes to like my friends and stuff, like I feel like I feel like maybe we're all like that. Like, do you guys feel so empathetic towards the people that you love that you don't want to like
burden them.
Yeah.
With your stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Where you're like, you know what? You're like, you know what? I am good because I want you to be good.
I want you to be better.
Right. I want you to be better than me. So
Yeah.
I'm great.
It's true.
Yeah. Because I'm just telling you the tools I'm using right now. I'm no way an expert
Please,
in
everybody
this.
needs these tools, including us. We learn stuff on the show too.
Yeah, like how do I do that without like
Journaling.
Yeah.
Journal too, I think.
I
you
do.
mentioned.
Yeah.
So journaling, just first checking in, well, how do I feel about it? Right? I think that allows me to then articulate how I am feeling and then it literally asks me, what do I need right now? That's the level of like interconnection that I'm trying to do right now. Feelingswheel.com. You can identify an exact feeling that you are feeling in the motion, because I think the base emotions, anger, sadness, disappointment, things like that we are aware of, but there's so many other emotions that we can tap into.
There's an app.
There's literally, I think it's called feelingswheel.com. Wow. Some therapists use it, and it literally has 20 plus different types of emotions. And you can identify which one really relates to how you're feeling in the moment, which is for me really helpful, because then I go, oh, I'm not sad. Like, I'm disappointed. Like, and you get that is what I'm feeling right now.
The emotion under that initial emotion, and
and then you go, okay, now that I know that I'm disappointed, what do I need right now?
Yeah.
Right?
Ooh.
So then when a friend does,
right.
That is
It's so
a thing.
Mind blown.
So that's the first thing: identifying my feelings first, asking myself, what do I need in the moment. And then for me, I have one accountability friend, and it's starting to grow out. But like the one accountability is like, I was like, I'm going to be all vulnerable with you because it's so hard. And I was just like, ugh. And then they ask the questions around like, but how do you really feel? Like something happened recently. They were like, but what do you feel about it? I was like, well, it's not my thing. They're like, you can have feelings about this, even though it's not your situation. You can have feelings about it. And I was like, thank you for creating space for me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love that.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do y'all thoughts?
Love it.
That is tricky. That's great advice. I'm still trying to figure it out. I definitely think I'm a person that like, I feel disconnected from emotions, and then it takes me a really long time to like think, how do I feel? I think this hurt my feelings. But even when I kind of identify like this hurt my feelings, maybe why it hurt my feelings, I still kind of feel disconnected. And so journaling does help. But past that, I'm like, how do I get there? Yeah. So any advice?
I can't help you because I'm a if I had a therapist, they would call me like a justifier, a dismisser, like all of those fun terms, because I will be like, well, there's like people with no homes,
right?
So like, what is this?
It could be
like,
worse,
like it could be worse. And you guys, all of you, have heard me say whatever probably 60 million times. I'm like, whatever, because that's just like I dismiss, because I'm like, it's at the end of the day, for me, I always feel like, oh, there's bigger fish to fry, but that sometimes isn't, like, that's not the case. And people out there, like, it is okay to feel your feelings. I, like, used to have a screensaver on my phone that said feel your feelings. And I used to be, like, a lot, I feel like I'm better with it now. Yeah. But I still, like, am just, like, I'm, like, sometimes it's a lot of energy to feel your feelings. And if you're, like, a busy person and, like, you have a lot of things to do, like, it's not even that you don't want to, you just like don't have the energy to, so you're just like, you know what, it's fine, like whatever. And I think that being able to work through that is probably like the big thing, because I feel like a lot of people might be the same, like they're just like, oh, whatever, I'll think about it later.
And I think like one of my things too is like I'm an intellectualizer, so like
it's so easy to talk about.
I intellectualize my feelings. I won't feel them, I'll think about them, like I understand that I feel this, and then so that's kind of like why I like
thoughts on therapy.
Yes, do it. I had a therapist, finding another one. It's tricky, but one of the things that I really like doing, like SEL work, socio-emotional learning work with students, is because the sooner you have these tools, the better you're able to articulate your feelings.
Yes.
And like I think about how I grew up and like not really having those tools. I love trying to give these tools to students, because I understand like the math of how that works.
Yeah.
So it's like the sooner you have these tools, the better off you'll be. And then you won't be like in your 20s, like trying to like figure out these emotional things. It becomes easier.
Yeah. All right. We have talked about a lot, ladies. This has been quite the session. So we're going to transition into our last portion of the show, which is where we kind of give you an opportunity to give your final thoughts, final advice, insight, just something that you would like to leave our viewers with when it comes to growing pains and life transitions and how they impact your mental health. So, Emmani, would you like to start?
Sure. Some final thoughts are like, if I could tell my younger self, right? Like being open and finding who are the right people to open up with. And knowing like, okay, my older self, you're going to be just fine. Regardless of your obstacles, regardless of whatever comes your way, your life is not going to fall apart. This is for everybody. Your life will not fall apart. It might feel like it's crumbling all around you, but there is grounding as long as you find your footing. And making sure that like with that footing, figuring out how to climb your way back up. Like even if you're at rock bottom, y'all, like rock bottom is not the end because you have the ability to climb and make your way back up to the top. You can fall there time and time again. You can make millions of mistakes, but through those growing pains, like you can definitely find your way out.
I can listen to you all day.
Wow.
I can listen to
saying.
both of you all day.
I was like, oh man,
Wow.
no, so many good insights there. As you were sharing, what came to mind is like when you work out, you have to let your muscles actually rest if you want to let them grow.
Mm-hmm.
So the grind culture, although it can get you to your destination, at what cost?
Mm-hmm. At what
So going back to the nap ministry, I think it's important to listen to your body.
Yeah.
It's okay to take breaks, know your capacity, where you can be stretched, where you need to pause, rest, and then also know where your limits are, and who you can go to share, like, I can't handle this anymore.
Right.
I've done everything that I can, but I need help. And so I think it's really important to know what resources are available. So just to shout out any adult in a school environment, if you let them know that you need help and you're going through a hard time, it's their obligation to get you the resources.
Yeah. Yes.
I think the other part is if you're a friend and your friend is posting something online or told you something, don't take it lightly. Go to someone that you trust to process how you're feeling, right?
Yeah.
Say, I don't know how to approach, but I want to help my friend. I want to get them help. And I think the other part that I would say with growing pains is it's going to be here. It's a journey. It's a marathon. I wish you could say, oh, I got over this obstacle and now I'm good. There's going to be an obstacle that's going to come.
Yeah. You know, and there's like this, like, it's kind of like a verse, like a Bible verse or some kind of like proverb, but it's basically like you're either coming out of a storm, going through a storm, or you're chill. You're chill right now, but your storm's going to come. And when you get through that storm, what are you going to do? So it's always a process of like coming, going through, coming out. Yeah.
Nice. I love that. Kolbi-Rae, you got any last words?
Just honestly, you're like they said, like you're always going to be growing, and just know though, growing is a beautiful thing. At the end of the day, everything beautiful grows. Flowers grow, trees grow, babies they grow, like in your stomach. And out of your stomach. But everything grows. I'm just saying, like,
It's facts. You cannot deny that. That's
you
facts.
can't deny it. And if you're too comfortable, then you're not growing, and you should always want to grow. Whether you are in your storm, you're entering your storm, or your storm isn't there, you should always be open to growing, and it's a beautiful thing. And all of these tools that these beautiful ladies gave you today will help you navigate the growing process. So I hope that everybody took something away from that today, because I definitely did. Mel?
I did too. I mean, I guess the last thing I would say, similarly to some things that Emmani said, was you've been through challenges before, right? Look back on your previous challenges. One, think about ways that you got through them. That might help you to get through another one. But also look at your previous challenges and say, oh, well, shoot, I'm still here.
Right.
Shoot.
Right.
I'm still standing.
I made it
Right. I made it through.
and
And
use
I'm all
that. Use that because you've survived 100% of the challenges that you've been through because you are still here today. And keep that in mind. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. This has been an amazing discussion.
Yeah.
Once again, I'm Melanie Eke.
And I'm Kolbi-Rae.
And you are watching Life Lessons on NCRF TV. And thank you for tuning in. Make sure you leave comments. Let us know what you'd like us to talk about next. We're all open and we're here to help you do life.